All right. Morning, everyone. I'm Sam. Most of you already know me. I'm from ASG. Been working on Dynamics for a very long time, more than I can remember probably. And I've also been playing a lot with the cloud technologies, mostly Azure Office 365, and thinking of ways how we can actually incorporate all of those beautiful technologies with Dynamics. So before we get started, like how many of you have already played with Microsoft Flow or Logic Apps? Anyone here? Yeah, that's good. Flow was introduced back in 2016, and since then it has grown quite a bit with like lots of new features, and they have really made it like really easy to actually make use of it than like compared to the very first version. How many of you ever had an experience where you were thinking like, I really need to get something done, but we need a developer, we need an IT guy. I'm only like doing data entry. We need an IT guy to do that, to do this. I really want to get that done. So with CRM, you could still do that, but there are lots of limitations when it comes to an end user or a business user. So that's where Microsoft has really changed the game in terms of introducing Flow and Logic Apps. For today, I'm actually going to cover more of Flow and a bit less on Logic Apps. I'll talk about it and I'll show you what it looks like. But since it's more dev related, I will just skim over the top. So what is Flow? It is a workflow automation tool, and it can seamlessly integrate different services together. Different services in the sense like you've got Office 365, you've got you've got Exchange, you've got your mail, you've got SharePoint, and then on the other side of the Microsoft stack, you've got things like OneDrive, things like Dynamics, and then you got totally different other third-party apps like Trello, Jira, and things like that, which are quite popular. And most organizations rely on other third-party services quite heavily as well. So you can actually bring all of them together quite easily. So Flow is Flow is a trigger and action-based composition. So there's a trigger, there's an event, and then you take some action after the event has been triggered. And it's an easy-to-use GUI, drag and drop, click and all of that stuff. No coding required. It's actually mainly targeted at super users or end users who are a bit savvy with the technology rather than just using a CRM form. They can go about make some workflows and stuff like that. And no dev knowledge required. And that's the main part of the Flow and the main selling point. And it natively integrates with Dynamics 365, no coding required for that. And it actually uses the individual user's authentication. So if I was to create a flow, which I will show you in a second, it'll actually use my authentication to connect to CRM and things like that. And you can actually sign up for a trial for 90 days. But I will actually show you some pricing plans as well at the end. So I've actually cut down a lot of the slides this month. And I'm going to jump straight into a demo because I've got like 6 demos to present. So hopefully, I think that's probably better than actually talking through slides. I'll actually put that on. Yeah. So Flow is actually a separate product as well as you get that within your Office 365 product suite. If you go to your Office 365 homepage, out of many apps, you will actually see Flow there. So you can easily get that up and running. It will be on your left navigation, and the only thing to make sure is just like getting access to Dynamics, you just need to make sure that you've been assigned the license within Office 365. But if you got the license, it's pretty easy. You open it up, and then it'll actually give you so much more information about how to actually set it up. So as I said, Flow is a standalone application. It's not running inside Dynamics, but I'll actually show you how to integrate with Dynamics. So I'm going to jump into Dynamics. So I've got Dynamics 365 V9 running. It's an online instance, and compared to previous versions of Dynamics, the V9 introduced a native integration with Flow. So previously you had to log into Flow separately and do all the other stuff. But now you can actually create and trigger your flows from inside Dynamics. So what I will actually do is, if I actually go into, if I just take going inside a record, I'll actually be able to see the flows option in the command bar. Wait for that to come up. So if I go to the menu bar, I'll be able to see flows there in the command bar. And then if I actually click on the arrow, it'll show me log into Flow, because it'll for the first time it'll actually authenticate myself into Flow, just to make sure that I've actually got permissions to use Flow. I'm actually going to click on that, and that will self-authenticate, so login successful, because I was already logged in with my account. And then if I can go in and I can say create a flow. So this will now integrate my lead entity and then allows me to create a flow for them. So what will happen here is I'm creating an on-demand flow. Flows can be triggered, as I said, it's a trigger and action-based composition. So triggers can be, there are multiple triggers. It could be based on an event, such as on creation of a record, on deletion of a record, update of a record, or it could be at an interval. So it's like every 5 minutes, every 5 days, or something like that. So what this will do is this will pretty much gives me a trigger called when a record is selected, and then all the parameters are already set. It actually says using parameters, and I don't even need to set up anything because it already knew that I was in Dynamics 365. It already knows which organization within Dynamics I'm talking about, and it already knows that I want to create a flow for a lead. So this is the flow designer, and it's a GUI-based online designer. So you can actually choose an action. You can have if conditions, for loops, and then when you actually want to perform an action or choose an action, it'll actually give you a range of connectors. So this is where the actual the power and the capability of flow really comes to life, because these are all the out-of-the-box connectors that you have. So I think it's probably hundreds, not hundreds, probably one or 200 connectors here, and the list is actually growing as well. So you can see things like Office 365, OneDrive, all the usual Microsoft stuff. You have your Azure based connectors as well. You have things like Basecamp, Bitbucket, and Jira, and all of the Dropbox and all the other providers are already in here. And if you need to build a connector on your own, you also have the option to do that as well. So if you've got a developer who can write an API, like a web API, a web service, you can actually create a custom connector that can connect to your on-premise, custom, line of business application, apart from the out-of-the-box ones. So let's actually do something really simple. So I just want to send an email, and I might actually just add this lead. When I actually choose a lead, I want to actually transfer that information from the lead into SharePoint. So how can I do that? So I'm going to simply go in and search for SharePoint, and then that will actually bring me the SharePoint connector. And then once you actually pick a connector, it'll actually show you a range of actions that you can perform inside that connector, such as creating a file, creating an item, deleting a file, creating a folder, and things like that. So every connector has its own list of actions. So for this demo, I'm actually going to create an item. I just simply want to create an item inside a list. So create an item, and then if I actually jump into my SharePoint site, I've just got this, SharePoint site, SharePoint online site called Sales, and inside that I've got a custom list, just a simple list with a couple of fields, and it just a normal list that you may already have. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to actually take the site. I'm going to just take the site. And then it will actually recognize the lists automatically. So it already knew that I had a leads list, so I'm going to pick that one. And now it will actually work out what fields are there in that list. So in that list, I've actually got title, customer, email address, phone number, and a manager comment, which I will actually go and talk about a bit later. So I just want to simply create the title. So as soon as I actually click on the field, it actually gives me the parameters from Dynamics. So this actually gives me really simple things like last name, timestamp, but that's not the full list. I can click on See More, and that actually gives me the full fields list out of a lead. So for this instance, I just need the title, I think the topic, from the lead, and then you got the, as the customer, I'm just going to pick the first name, have a space, and then I'm going to put the last name in, and email address, I'm going to do the same thing, primarily email address. And that's my flow done. So it's easy as that, it's all drag and drop. It will automatically recognize what you're connecting to, what you're connecting from, and automatically show you the options. So let's go and create that. So you can actually rename this, so it just, by default it says Dynamics 365 button, but I'll actually get that sent to SharePoint. And so now that flow is actually saved inside my flows applications. If I go to my flows, you'll actually be able to see that sent to SharePoint. And now I'm going to go back into my lead again. So I can't see flows in here because the flow actually works in when you're actually dealing with the record. So I've picked this record flows. It hasn't refreshed yet. So in a couple of seconds, it will actually recognize that back into Dynamics. So you don't have to be logging into Flow all the time. So you can just go flows, send to SP, and now this is all within Dynamics. And this is the native integration that we actually received in the latest version. Send to SP, it'll prompt for a modal dialog, and then it's loading. So it says, I could have provided with like a description of some sort, and it says that this flow connects to Dynamics 365 as well as SharePoint. So it'll actually tell you what connectors the flow would actually be talking to. I can just go continue, and then it'll actually allow me to run the flow. So this is an on-demand flow. I will actually show you another flow in a bit. The flow has started successfully. I can see the activity. That will give me a history record for the actual flow, and did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it work? And then so in our case it actually worked, so that's good. So if I go inside, it'll actually show me the path the flow took, and it'll actually have a green tick next to it, so it just resembles that the fact that the flow actually worked. If there's an error, there would be a red cross with an explanation as to why it failed. So what did we do? We created an item in a SharePoint list. So I'm just going to go and refresh my list. Oh, hasn't come in. Oh, that's unexpected. Let's try to go and load that list. There you go. So my lead has now transferred across to SharePoint. And it's all real time as well because I made an on-demand flow. So the next kind of flow that you can actually make is based on a certain event. So you are not necessarily like going to the command bar saying run this flow, run that flow, but I can actually create a flow when a record is created, such as let's say I want to do something like I want to add my CRM contacts into my Outlook contact book. So traditionally, to do that, either you have to do some copy pasting. You need your Outlook app. You need the Outlook add-in and stuff like that. Have server-side synchronization so that you can actually get your records from Dynamics transferred into your Exchange mailbox or your Outlook profile. So I'm just going to create a flow. When it comes to creating a flow, I've actually got two options: create from a blank or create from a template. So if I pick create from templates, there are pre-built templates that you can actually leverage off. I'll actually show you what that looks like. So these are all these recipes or flows, pre-built flows that you can configure. And particularly for Dynamics, if I actually search for Dynamics, there are built-in things like create a new contact in CRM, and it actually sends me a notification. When a new opportunity is created, post it to YAML. So these are all pre-built flows that you can readily use. But for this purpose, I'm just going to create one from scratch. So create from blank, and then it says start with a trigger. So what's my trigger? When a record is created. So I want to trigger this flow automatically when I'm creating contacts. So I'll pick that. create Outlook contact, and then it asks me what organization. So it'll automatically recognize, based on my single sign-on account, my login, it'll recognize that I'm already part of the ESG CRM organization. Entity name, what am I talking about? I'm talking about contacts. So I can pick contacts, and then I want to perform an action. So what action do I want to perform? I want to do something with Office 365 Outlook, and then that gives me the list of actions, and I'm going to go create contact. Okay, so now you can see you got more options than what you saw with the SharePoint one. I mean, this is like, extensive list. And if I want to go even beyond that, that actually gives me the full field list of an Outlook contact. But I'm just going to keep it simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a folder. So I've got a contacts folder, and then give a name. I'm just going to pick the first name and the last name, and probably a home phone, the telephone number, company name. All of those things can actually be set up. So this is just a matter of setting up the mapping between your CRM fields as well as your connector fields. So I think that's all the required fields. Yep. So that's all done, and that's my flow done as well. So create a flow, and I'm actually going to do one more thing as well. I'm actually going to send a notification to my phone as well, so I'm going to go notifications. Send me a mobile notification. The text is contact created in Dynamics, and that's it. That's my flow done. I've actually got my phone mirrored onto the screen as well, so I can actually show you what that looks like. All right, so that's my flow done. Run history, there's nothing, so I'm going to jump back into my CRM. I'm going to go sales, contacts. I could have even just used quick create. So now it's looking and listening to that event on creation of a contact. So I'm going to go Sam. And the phone number 3. Just save. I should receive. So let's see what our flow is actually doing. Create Outlook contact, run history. It hasn't started yet. So with event-based triggers, it takes a little bit of time. It's not instant. It's not like a plugin in Dynamics. So you need to give it a bit of time, such as a couple of minutes. So usually it's within like 5 minutes it'll start running, and then it'll actually start showing. Oh, there you go. So it actually succeeded 16 seconds ago. And then if I actually go inside that, and if I actually go into my phone, it actually sent me a mobile notification as well. And then I can actually click on that. It actually takes me to the notification because I had the Flows app installed on my phone. And then that has all the information about what the flow was. And then if I actually went into my Outlook, so this is just my Office 365, going to contacts, your contacts, and the record is there. The one below is from one of my test runs, and that's the one with the emails which I just entered. So you can see how powerful it is. You no longer need to deal with APIs. You're pretty much dealing with your day-to-day stuff. Who wants to see something really cool than what I just showed? So there's a really cool feature with Flow called approval flows. So this is where you can actually trigger a flow, but then seek approval for somebody else before it actually carries on with its actions. Say if I want to, for example, create a lead in Dynamics, I want to perform an action, but before I do that, I want to actually seek approval. So I want to send that approval to a couple of people, get them to approve. Maybe they might, somebody might reject it. They can put a comment, and then only if they approve, it will actually continue the flow. So I'm going to create one of those. So I'm going to go into flows again, create from blank. Again, I'm going to go with when a record is created.
Sam, the triggers, can they be a non-Microsoft product as well?
Yes. Yeah.
And I just know you mentioned Jira before as a destination.
Yeah. Creation of a bug, creation of a user story, updating.
Trigger and then do something.
Yeah, so that will be your trigger, that's right. So I'm going to pick my entity is, I want to create a lead. So what do I want to do? So before I actually go ahead with my actions, I want to actually seek approval. So I'm going to go choose an action. So the action that I want to do is approval. So you've got to connect up all approvals. It says start an approval flow, and now this gives me the ability to actually pick what kind of approval I'm looking for. Do I need everyone in this list to approve, or so anyone in this list of people to approve, or I need everyone to approve what I'm doing. So I just go anyone can approve, and the title is approve lead creation in SharePoint. So like I was actually creating the lead and sending to SharePoint, now I want to actually get approval before I actually do that. And then assign to a particular person. So I'm just going to pick a person from Exchange, which is myself. And then the details could be a lead has been created in Dynamics 365. Topic is, and now I can actually pick the topic, and then that will be the text that the person would actually be getting. And that's my approval. So what do I do next? I go for a condition. So now this will actually send a message, which I will actually show you. But before that, I want to actually pre-program or pre-configure my actions. So what if they say no, or what if they say yes? What do I want to do? So I'm going to go with the response is equal to approve. So that's a pre-configured condition that you need to have. If yes, so if someone says approve, now I'm going to do my perform my action. So I'm going to go with SharePoint, and then create the action and things like that. So that'll be similar to what I actually did before. So I'm not going to do that again. So I'll actually and that will be my flow. So now if I actually open up my phone, and I'm going to actually do this because the approval comes as an email to you as well as a notification on your phone. So that's the coolest part. You don't need to necessarily need to be online or working in Exchange or Outlook. So you can pretty much quickly see. Just trying to get rid of my automatic lock. All right. So I'm going to go into CRM. Where's lead? Yeah, there you go. And then I'm going to say Sam's test lead, and then first name, last name. I'm going to pick VentureWorks or something like that. Click on save. Now this the record has been created. The flow will start firing. And where's my flow? That's my flow. And if I actually go to run history, it's still waiting to run. And then I'll actually go into my phone, and then I'll be able to actually get the flow approval. So it actually sent me, I was on Do Not Disturb before. I didn't receive any calls or text messages. So it actually sent me a notification onto my phone. Approve lead creation. And it's actually got information about what I actually configured. So I said a lead was created in Dynamics. So it's got that text. And then, so it's from the person who triggered the flow. And then I can approve. And then I can also add a comment in. And then just confirm that. And then now it will actually go back to flow and then start doing the rest. So that's actually how you easily set up like an approval flow. And then just so that things don't happen straight away, you always go through another person or people. go and try to do, since I've got a few more minutes, I'm going to do another one. This time I'm going to actually create a flow, but using a template. So there's a nice template called create leads from Excel. You would think I could have imported my Excel file into CRM, which is an out-of-the-box feature. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this flow every couple of minutes, and then get the leads transferred across to CRM without having to manually import the file. So what this flow is based on is a recurrent trigger. So it will be like every 5 minutes, every 1 hour. And the idea is that you will have information in Excel, stored in OneDrive, potentially, and then I'm going to dump that into CRM. So I can continue with that. And this is actually how you leverage your template, so that you don't have to deal with a lot of that stuff, because the template is already there. And all you have to do is just set up a couple of things and tweak some of the settings. All right, so I'm going to go into my files. So I had a file in my OneDrive, OneDrive for Business, called My Leads. And if I open that up, I've just got a very simple table. It's opened up in Excel. Okay, something's wrong with that. Let me try again. No, that's right. We can just create a brand new one. I'm just going to create an Excel file on the fly, and then it's pretty simple. All you need is a table. So I'm going to say, so I'm creating leads. So it's pretty simple. Lead 1, or something like that. Lead 2, and that's my table. So I'm just going to format that as a table. My table has headers and my new leads, and that's it. So that's my Excel file done. This might be an existing Excel file that you already have, something that you consistently is working on, other people or getting contributed by other people in your organization as well. So I'm going to go back into my flow. So it has a predefined action called get rows, because I want to go through each and every row in that table. So I'm going to pick my OneDrive for Business. That's the new file that I created, my new leads, and then table 1. I only got one table, and then it actually do two things. So this is another feature of Flow where you can actually have actions running in parallel. So while I'm actually creating a record in CRM, I also want to get that record deleted from the Excel file, because I don't want to keep picking that same record again and again. So I'm going to do that, pick that thing again, my new leads, table 1, and then create new record, and that's it. Oh, PSG, I have to pick the organization. It's already got leads, and then I'm going to just use the fields from my Excel file, which is already there. So first name, that's the lead name. No, last name. So last. Topic is topic. And then, so these were predefined. So I'm just going to remove them and then replace with my own. And that's it. That's the flow done. So so the flow template, if you can actually see here, it's actually got 1 minute intervals. So that's actually too soon for the normal version of Flow. So you need to be signed up with the premium. So I'm just going to kick off a trial. That's fine, and then that will just upgrade my subscription. That gives me that 1 minute interval, and that's it, done. It's already running 7 seconds ago. So as soon as I actually created it, it started running. So we can actually go into leads. That's my leads. My open leads. Yeah, lead 1 and lead 2. So those are my leads from Excel now, have turned up in Dynamics. So that's how easy it is to actually set up a really simple flow. But if you actually think of it, you'll actually be saving a lot of time by having these flows created, so that you're not actually wasting time uploading files, like jumping into system by system and things like that. So So I also want to talk about logic apps. So Flow is actually meant to be used by end users, as I said before, and logic apps is the underlying platform that is actually powering Flow. So Flow is kind of like an end user level platform powered by the same engine that's running logic apps, which is much more sophisticated, and it is actually part of your normal Azure subscription. It's a PaaS offering, that's platform as a service offering for workflow orchestration. So it's got much more features than Flow. And it's actually a powerful developer tool, and you got much more control over your Flow as well. You can have continuous integration, you can have automation, you can have like templating and all of those other features. Deploy a logic app from like TFS, VSTS, Bitbucket, or something like that. Source control capabilities, and it's actually targeted at enterprise level, like mission critical integrations. As I actually showed you before, the Flow was actually running under my context, my authentication, and the Flow was actually mine. It was my Flow. It wasn't a team Flow. It wasn't an organization Flow. And that's the actual differentiation that Microsoft is making with Flow and Logic Apps, is the fact that Flow is for end users, Logic Apps is for the enterprise level. It's more like B2B kind of integrations. And it's pretty much aimed at IT pros, developers, your system admins. So how do you use Flow in the real world? I mean, it's pretty much like a devless features. It provides you like devless features for super users or end users. You can actually extend Flow with different other custom connectors, and other Azure components, creating custom connectors, and you can also, using gateways, you can actually connect your on-premise services as well. Quickly, before I wrap up, a couple of limitations. So compared to Logic Apps, which is for, as I said, enterprise grade, Flow's got limitations. You can't have any DevOps, continuous integration, source control, version control. You don't have any of that. It's pretty much self-service and user-based. And it doesn't have the functionality to support a true B2B enterprise level integration. And it runs in the context of the user. How are we looking at pricing wise? So you got a free Flow package. You got a plan 1 and plan 2. As you can see, you have much more capability in as you go further up, and you can also find the pricing online. But since you're already a Dynamics customer, you actually get Flow for free, and within your Office 365 admin, it will actually come up as Dynamics 365 Flow, and you actually get Flow for free if you already subscribe to any of these Dynamics licenses.
Which tier would you get, by the way, if you were?
So you got plan 1, and this one entitles you to plan 2.
So which tier of Logic Apps? Sorry, not Logic, Flow would you get?
Plan 1 and plan 2.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I see. Yep. Makes sense.
And things like that. So you also get that with Office 365 as well. So the pricing page will actually show you what you are entitled to. So you might already have Office 365, and you might already be licensed to use Flow even right now.
So the 750, is that per user?
Yeah, that's per user. 750 runs, per user. And that's why I said, if you need hundreds of thousands of records processing, millions of records processing, Flow is not the ideal tool. So that's why you need Logic App, because that's a true enterprise thing. Okay, so how do you get started? So Microsoft have recently published a really nice documentation site. So you can find all the information from these 2 links about Flow and Logic Apps if you're interested. And hope you enjoyed today's session. And so I actually encourage you to go and try to figure out if you've got Flow first, and try to create a Flow. If you already got SharePoint Dynamics, it's pretty easy, as I showed you. Within a few minutes, you can achieve something that would have taken days for a developer to do, because of all the custom code, API calling, and stuff like that. So thanks for joining in, and hope you enjoyed. I will now hand over to Neeraj.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Sam. Well, that was amazing. I'm gonna start using it.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I think so.
All right,
Flow's pretty good. So in our next